Good morning and welcome to the Government Affairs Forum featuring Speaker Ron Mariano. I'm Jim Rooney, President and CEO of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, and I'm so pleased to be joined by my longtime friend, the Speaker of the House, for this Chamber event. It's a wonderful time of year to have him join us for this Government Affairs Forum. On behalf of the business community, I want to recognize a few of the Speaker's colleagues that are with us today. Starting with Representative Aaron Michaelwitz, Chair, Committee of Ways and Means, Representative Mike Moran, Majority Leader, Representative Kate Hogan, Speaker pro tempore, Representative Alice Peisch, Assistant Majority Leader, Representative Frank Moran, Second Assistant Majority Leader, Representative Sarah Peak, Second Assistant Majority Leader, Representative Jeff Roy, Chair, Committee on Telecommunications, Utilities and Energy, Representative John Lawn, Chair, Committee on Healthcare Financing, Representative Mark Cusack, Chair, Committee on Revenue, who deserves a special pay for his hearing earlier this week, Representative Denise Garlick, Chair, Committee on Education, Representative William Driscoll. Please join me in welcoming the members of the House with us today. Mr. Speaker, we can get some business done with that crowd in the room today. And I want to give a special welcome to our Secretary of Transportation, Gina Fiandaca. Gina. Gina took this job and isn't getting much sleep, but she got an extra hour this week when our new general manager of the MBTA was named Phil Eng, and we're all encouraged, Madam Secretary, by that appointment and feeling a lot of trust and confidence in you and Phil to help us get the T where it needs to be. So Godspeed to you on that journey, and you can depend on the support of the business community. Okay, a few commercial messages. Please join us on May 2nd. We'll feature Attorney General Andrea Campbell. And on June 15th, we'll feature Senate President Karen Spilka, so mark those on your calendar. And for those of you that are in the small business space, it's annual Small Business of the Year Awards nomination time. So we launched that today, and we encourage you or maybe other businesses that might feel like there's a deserving small business in our community of an award and recognition to put a nomination in. And mark your calendars for May 16th. Be sure to join us for the Chamber's annual meeting, which will bring together 1,500 business and civic leaders from across our community. Always a great event. The premier event of the Greater Boston and regional business community, and we hope you'll join us. And I'm pleased to announce today that our annual meeting keynote speaker will be the CEO of Slack, Lydiana Jones. Now, everyone know what Slack is? Does everyone have okay. So Slack, for those of you that don't know, Slack's a digital platform or a messaging app that connects people in the workplace, creating a more united workforce, which is, as you think about it, especially important in this flexible work environment that we live in. And if you don't know Lydiana, she lives in Cambridge, and you know, for the past, I don't know, decade or so, we've talked about in the world of computing, you know, we're going to store things in the cloud and put things in the cloud and so forth. And everyone wonders, where's the cloud? Lydiana knows where the cloud is. So she'll be speaking at our annual meeting. Very bright leader in our community that I encourage you to Google her when you go back. So you can find out more about that event and other chamber events on bostonchamber.com. Don't forget to join the conversation today on the Chamber's public policy Twitter at GBCC Policy. We're almost ready to welcome the speaker to the podium, but I do want to thank and give a round of applause to David Colella here at the Colonnade Hotel, the general manager, and the staff that are serving us here today. Thank you. And thank you to our friends at Comcast who helped bring our government affairs program to a wider audience. Thank you, Comcast. I always like to kick this off and introduce Mihal Chamberlain by thanking Bank of America for their longtime sponsorship of the government affairs program. But today, I want to just pause for a minute and talk about the Boston Marathon. We all know what an iconic event and branding event this is for our community. You know, Bank of America announcing their 10-year sponsorship deal is just another way that this bank and many institutions in the business community step up and support organizations throughout the Commonwealth in such a meaningful way. So, so thank you, Bank of America, for that. Yeah. But I'd be remiss if I did not also acknowledge John Hancock's longtime 40-year sponsorship of the Boston Marathon. And for those in my age bracket, you'll remember what the Boston Marathon was like about 40 years ago. It was at a crossroads, and it could have gone in a much different direction and not become the event that it is today, which has such a global focus, a global brand, and as I said, is such an iconic event for Boston. So 40 years, it's a good run to sponsor an event like that, so please join me in thanking John Hancock. So with that, I'm pleased to turn it over to Mihal Chamberlain, President, Bank of America, and Chamber Executive Committee member, to introduce Speaker Mariano.
All right, Jim, thank you for the very kind introduction. We're thrilled at the opportunity to take over the marathon, and again, big thanks to Hancock for all they did. I think about the marathon in the same breath as I think about Hancock, and if we can do the same, I think it will be a victory for our brand and our franchise. I also appreciate that tutorial on Slack, Jim, that really, people were really invigorated by that to start the morning. But anyway, happy opening day, everybody. You know, we're excited. Hope springs eternal. And I think I heard on the radio on the way in it's going to be colder for the game today than it was for Frozen Fenway when the Bruins faced off in January. But anyway, that's why we love New England and we live here. But anyway, on behalf of my Bank America and my teammates that are proud to call the Commonwealth home, it's an honor really to introduce today's featured speaker, the Speaker of the Massachusetts House of Representatives, Ron Mariano. Speaker Mariano has represented the 3rd Norfolk District in the Massachusetts House of Representatives since 1991. He was elected Speaker of the House in December 2020 after serving as majority leader for 9 years. Throughout his career, Speaker Mariano has been a driving force behind groundbreaking legislation related to civil rights, LGBTQ rights, healthcare, reproductive justice, gun control, and education. While serving as the House Chair on the Joint Committee on Financial Services in 2006, Speaker Mariano was a key architect of the Commonwealth's landmark healthcare reform, which served as a model for the Affordable Care Act. So we're thrilled and honored to have you with us as Speaker today, Mr. Speaker. So without further ado, please welcome Speaker Ron Mariano.
Thank you. I thought you were going to just have a pair of pants, Mr. Slack here. I was wondering what that whole thing was about. I'm still not 100% sure I understand how the pants talk. But you stick with it, Jim. Thank you, Mihal, and Jim for the kind introduction. Everyone's glad to see you here, Jim. I got a lot of comments. Is Jim Rooney going to be here? Because they knew the T was looking for a new director. And when we saw that the salary range was getting close to where you know, we thought maybe But instead they went with a real transportation guy. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for the right choice. And of course, thank you to all the members of the Greater Boston Chamber for inviting me. You know, I've just told, this is my third appearance here, I think, and I've had 2 sellouts, and I think I'm gonna renegotiate my contract. I want Bogart money, I'm telling you. I'll be in the New Hampshire chamber. Now, seriously, this is one of the events I really enjoy doing. It gives me an opportunity to let you know what I'm thinking about. And it's really great to see so many people here and see that you all decided to stay, even though the voters approved the millionaire tax. So it's good to see this attendance is still up there. And I said the voters approved the millionaire's tax. The voters, not me personally. You know, and I'm also glad that we're joined by a number of my colleagues. Those are the folks that do the work. Those are the ones that dig into the general laws and attend the hearings and process all the information that we get around the issues that we have to deal with. So I owe them an awful lot. And I'm very happy that they were able to join me. So many of them were able to join me today. I'm not going to read the names because Jim already did that. So we don't need to repeat that. But this is a historic reunion of sorts to talk about some of the targeted investments we've made in hospitals, affordable housing, education, and small businesses. We took vital action on climate, making the largest investment in clean energy in the history of the Commonwealth. Investments that will create thousands of new jobs and help us achieve our clean energy goals. We overhauled the Commonwealth's mental health delivery system and bolstered support for youth mental health services. And of course, we legalized sports wagering during the bringing the immense economic benefits of legal sports betting industry to the Commonwealth. As those of you who may or may not know, I recently had the opportunity to place some of the very first bets at Encore and on the DraftKings app. I did that with my chairman of Ways and Means, which shows you how much fiscal sense he has. And like a true delusional Boston fan, I'm all in on the Celts, the Bruins, and I even have the Red Sox to win 78 games. So you can see where I'm going to. I'll be back here next year too. When I addressed the chamber last year, back when I had to bet through a bookie, and I want to thank you for pointing that out, Jim. We were engaged in finalizing much of the critical progress of last session. And I made sure to emphasize the importance of strong working relationships between the branches of the government, constituents and advocates, and finally the business community. Now, as Washington tries to navigate the challenges of a divided government, the work we do at the state level and the relationships that make that work possible has never been more important. That's why I'm encouraged to see Governor Healy already displaying a strong commitment to the shared sense of collaboration that fueled much of the progress from last session. Along with Senator Speaker and our partners in the Senate, I'm optimistic about what we can accomplish as we work with the new administration to address the most daunting challenges facing the Commonwealth. One of those challenges, especially during the post-pandemic economic uncertainty and the waning support from the federal government, is balancing state government efforts to increase affordability with a focus on fiscal responsibility that protects the Commonwealth's long-term future. As you know, I'm sure you all know, the House and Senate advanced a tax relief package that offered permanent changes to several aspects of the tax code, along with a one-time rebate program designed to provide immediate relief to middle-class residents. Ultimately, the deliberations around the broader tax relief package were sidelined, as we instead had to allow for a one-time rebate triggered by Chapter 62F. As a result of that decade-old law, which dictated that $3 billion worth of rebates be sent to taxpayers late last year, amid a period of complex economic uncertainty, I've urged caution during conversations surrounding tax relief. Throughout the discussion, though, I've been clear. If revenue predictions indicate that there is an opportunity to responsibly provide tax relief, the House will do so. And after countless informative conversations, and Aaron can testify to those, because he went to all of them, I went to most of them. Conversations with colleagues, the consensus revenue in tax relief hearings have led me to announce today that the House will soon release a comprehensive tax reform package aimed at providing responsible, permanent financial relief to all residents of the Commonwealth, regardless of income status. Among the reforms being considered for proposal are several of the provisions that the legislature advanced last session. Provisions that were designed to provide relief to families, renters, and many of the Commonwealth's most vulnerable residents, all while making Massachusetts more competitive with other states. In order to guarantee that this proposal does not jeopardize the long-term financial security of the Commonwealth, our tax relief package will propose phasing in several tax reforms over a multi-year period. I want to thank Chairman Michaelwitz and Chairman Cusack, because they do deserve hazardous pay for their work on this issue, and for ensuring that public input plays a consequential role in this process. I think Chairman Cusack had about 5 hours of public input the other day. And I'm confident that our ultimate proposal and its method of implementation will appropriately balance our shared goal of making Massachusetts a more affordable and competitive state, with the ever-important responsibility of ensuring that the Commonwealth is prepared for an uncertain economic future. Hey, and if all that fails, my plan is to bet 100% of the millionaire's tax revenue on the Celts to win it all. So we'll be all set. While I look forward to soon finalizing our tax relief proposal, the House's work to provide for financial support for Massachusetts residents will not be constrained by tax reform alone. Today, I am also proud to announce that the House's upcoming budget proposal will include Governor Healy's initiative for free college for residents of Massachusetts who are over 25 years old and who do not already have a college degree. We want to help the folks who are facing the labor shortages that seem to be pervasive in industries like healthcare, STEM, and manufacturing. I'm sure all of you who manage businesses have run into the same types of problems in getting people. With continued leadership from our community college partners in the House's Higher Education Committee Chair, Dave Rogers, this plan will undoubtedly create educational and career opportunities for residents across the Commonwealth, many of whom may come from historically underserved communities, while also helping to ensure that Massachusetts possesses a highly trained workforce that is prepared for some of the industries of the future. This plan will work in conjunction with the early college and the dual enrollment in the industry credentialing programs that the House has long championed to provide greater educational opportunities, especially for low-income students and students of color. Last year, the House more than doubled our investment in early college programming compared to years prior, providing over $10 million in funding. This investment has been critical and has led to a strong partnership between our high schools and colleges. Going forward, I have no doubt that these initiatives will positively impact the companies that are represented here today. Additionally, I'm proud to announce that our upcoming budget proposal, the House will permanently fund free school meals for all public school students in the Commonwealth. Makes Massachusetts the 5th state in the country to do that. This is one of the many federally supported initiatives that was implemented during the pandemic, whose future was jeopardized when the federal government ended the program. And I'm proud of the fact that the House led the way last year to continue this funding and of our renewed commitment to important elements of the Commonwealth's pandemic recovery efforts. While we've come a long way since the height of the pandemic, there's still much work to be done. We want to address the financial challenges Massachusetts residents and businesses are facing due to the hardships of the past few years. To meet these challenges head on, it's my firm belief that we must pursue forward-thinking solutions that are aimed at increasing affordability for residents and at providing support for vital industries. Our healthcare system is in the midst of an affordability crisis. Patients are arriving at hospitals sicker and staying longer, too often because they're waiting for space at a skilled nursing facility. Capacity issues are exacerbating staff burnout and applying even greater financial strain on hospital systems. All the while, travel nurses and other temporary staff cost hospitals more than $1.5 billion a year. And I'm gonna just pause there for a second. Think about that. I was talking to a hospital CEO who was trying to put his budget together and found out he had a $30 million nursing expense line for travel nurses, for just travel nurses. I don't know how you put a budget together when you find out you have an additional $30 million that you hadn't anticipated and hadn't planned on. So those are the types of decisions that are being made, that hospital administrators are facing today. So to help stabilize the system, the legislature took the unprecedented step of distributing $650 million in federal ARPA funding. And it still just dented the surface of the problems that our hospitals are facing. I said, and make no mistake, provider organizations in Massachusetts are negotiating higher reimbursement rates that will ultimately impact residents and businesses in the forms of increased premium and greater out-of-pocket spending. The challenging time for the healthcare industry comes at the 10-year anniversary of the passage of Chapter 224, which was historically significant in our state's healthcare history. it led to cost containment efforts. And as someone who played a role in getting that 2012 law passed, I know that it's now time for those reforms to have a checkup. And that begins by trying to expand the role of the Health Policy Commission in our regulatory system, and by ensuring that the Commission has the relevant professional experiences to help the state meet the challenges of our current and future healthcare landscape. That also includes revisiting legislation that the House passed last session to reform how hospital expansions are reviewed and approved. These expansions continue to threaten our community hospitals, which are the most affordable care option for our vulnerable residents. When these hospitals go out of business, overall health care costs rise. Working families lose a critical care access point, and entire local economies, particularly economies in gateway cities, are left to struggle. If we are serious about ensuring access to affordable health care for all Massachusetts residents, we must act to protect community hospitals. I am committed to getting this done. I look forward to working with Chairman John Lawn and all my colleagues in the House on this. We have a number of active representatives who are supporting their hospital and have been in my ear for almost 2 years now. And I see Frank Moran nodding his head because he's been the royal pain. But with legitimately trying to resolve issues that are very, very difficult. Another important sector of the Massachusetts economy that has experienced exacerbated challenges due to the fallout of the pandemic is early education care. As many of you know, a robust and supported early education and care workforce, it's not just essential for Massachusetts families, but for you, the Commonwealth's businesses as well. That's why the House remains committed to providing support for our vital EEC workforce, who are largely women and often women of color. As we work to build a system that can provide affordable access to quality care for all Massachusetts families. Under the guidance of Leader Alice Peisch, I'm proud of the work that the House did last session. We've increased salaries and provided additional support services for EEC workers. While I'm optimistic about the legislature's ability to do more on this important issue, I look forward to working with all of you this session under the leadership of House Education Chair Denise Garlick to ensure that we continue to work with the private sector to address the challenges facing the EEC workforce and our child care sector as a whole. One of the universal problems that have been raised in talking to people, as I was a little early today, was healthcare and finding reasonably priced healthcare and child care. While providing continued support for long and established essential industries such as healthcare and EEC, the House is also committed to aiding in the development and success of new industries. The House has successfully done this in the past with the life sciences industry, as state investments have helped to establish Massachusetts as a global leader in biotechnology, all the while creating thousands of jobs along the way. It's my belief that Massachusetts can also serve as a major player in the offshore wind industry, which will allow the Commonwealth to play a critical role in addressing the climate crisis and to create many new job opportunities for thousands of residents in Massachusetts. And that's why the House made historic investments in offshore wind last session. And that's why we are committed to pursuing ways to provide further support for offshore wind development. I know that Jeff Roy understands the ever important role that offshore wind will play in reducing global emissions. He's so serious about this, he went out and bought an electric car. Don't ask him how he likes it. I look forward to continue to work with Jeff and all my colleagues in the House, as well as members of this chamber, like Vineyard Wind and South Coast Wind, to ensure that Massachusetts can serve as a leader on this issue. We should be a leader. Now, before I wrap up this morning, I want to be serious for a minute and take a moment to acknowledge the horrific mass shootings that took place in Tennessee earlier this week. 6 innocent people. A heinous act that is part of the broader epidemic of gun violence that continues to plague this country. While I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've done here in Massachusetts to enact some of the strongest, most effective gun laws in the entire country, the Supreme Court's decision last summer has threatened that standing. But the good news, the House is already engaged in an effort led by Chair Mike Day to listen to constituents, outside experts, and advocates from across Massachusetts, and we want to strengthen our gun laws to confront these tragic acts of violence head on. From the national epidemic of gun violence to the daunting threat of climate change, to the challenges facing the healthcare industry, and finally, the economic uncertainty that the entire world continues to navigate. Each of the issues that I've discussed today are not just constrained to our here and now. Instead, they are long-term, generational challenges that will each require a forward-thinking, all-hands-on-deck approach. The truth is, our ability to respond to the most pressing challenges facing the Commonwealth and the world will be determined by our ability to work together. That's why these events are important, as they help to foster the collaboration and discussion of ideas between the public and private sector that is critical to delivering tangible results. So with that, I'd like to certainly thank Jim Rooney and the entire Boston Chamber, me Hall and the bank for sponsoring this, because I think it is important. And I'll come back anytime you want me, because I do think it is important. So with that, I want to just say thank you for the invitation.
So I want to go right at the competitiveness and tax reform issue. You mentioned it, and we're grateful and looking forward to the package that comes out next week. But in context, this year on January 1st, 14 states reduced their personal income tax, 8 states reduced their state corporate tax. There's only 1 state that increased taxes in either of those categories, and that was Massachusetts this year. And you know, when people say what is competitiveness, certainly cost of living, cost of doing business is part of that. And we're in a very competitive environment. Texas is the #1 inbound state for business relocations. North Carolina voted best state to do business. 110,000 people leaving Massachusetts over the last couple of years. So how does the body, the legislature, sort of think about in the context of tax reform in particular, but in other ways, how is the legislature thinking about and having dialogue about this issue of the competitiveness of the state right now?
Well, the competitiveness issue per se has not reached the front of the line. It's starting to raise up in the list of issues that we face daily. And obviously the pandemic really threw a blanket over all innovation and additional expansion of businesses in the Commonwealth, as well as other states. And as we basically come out of the pandemic and start to get back to business as usual, we're seeing some of the things that were just put in abeyance for the almost 2 years that we suffered through COVID, moving to the front of the line. And with that is, you know, the loss of federal funding for things like school lunch, where we stepped up as a Commonwealth to fill what we thought was an important need for kids in school. As a teacher for 12 years and someone who has seen kids come into school hungry, try to get their attention is nearly impossible. Get them to sit still and concentrate is impossible. So we try to do them in the order of I guess, impact on life for the bulk of constituents. So as we process through some of these issues, we come to the issue of competitiveness eventually, and we are starting to recognize that one of the reasons why I agreed to press ahead with the tax cut is that competitiveness is an issue. And when we're third in the, whatever you want to call it, the death tax, which was my name for it, it is a wake-up call for us, and it is something that we looked at when Mark Cusack took over revenue. It's one of the first things he pointed out to me 3 years ago, and we've struggled with the best way to deal with it. Now it's pretty much assumed that you're going to see that in the package in some way, shape, or form. So we're getting there, and we're getting there a step at a time. And there'll be other things in this package that will make some steps in the issue of competitiveness. So I'm kind of excited about the package. I think poor timing. I should have released the package. We should have released the package before I spoke. I'd be getting all sorts of applause, and no one would be trying to kill me.
Well, first, thank you for bringing a focus to that issue, along with Chairman Cusack and Chairman Mikowitz. I know that the receptivity to the conversation and understanding sort of the perspective of the business community and employers and job creators is welcome. So thank you for that. You mentioned being a former teacher. I was just imagining what it would have been like to have you as my teacher in elementary school. I'm sure they
There's
have
a reason why it's former teacher.
But there's a lot of additional resources, thanks to the legislature, to K through 12 schools through the Student Opportunity Act. And if you look at it combined with state municipal spending, it adds up to about $14 billion that is spent in that category in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's a lot of money, and in some cities it's the most per pupil that there is.
Yeah.
So how do you ensure results and accountability? How do you think about that part of
Well,
it?
look, accountability is always a challenge in any industry, and we have folks out here who run businesses who have to deal with accountability issues daily, and it's the same in any educational setting. You try to keep the workforce motivated, current. A lot of workshop training, a lot of innovative techniques that you test and try to implement, and so it's a pretty much a ongoing, almost monthly focus for every educational setting that you can find, especially in Massachusetts. Coming out of as a teacher in a gateway city, which had its challenges. I taught in a project school for 5 years. It's a challenge. It's getting kids focused when I have a kid falling asleep at class before we even say the Pledge of Allegiance because he was up all night because his parents were drinking and having a party. You're not really worried about test scores, you know. You're worried about getting the kid fed, getting them back into some sort of normalcy. So there are many things going on at our schools today that aren't measurable, but are very, very important to kids.
Well, thank you. Yeah. You know, thank you for sharing that that reflection, and I'm sure it had something to do with your decision to continue the funding for the school food program. I thought that during your remarks you issued a somewhat subtle call to action to the business community on early education and care.
Finally.
Expand on that. I mean, what, you know, you've spoken about the role of government. You know, what do you think?
I will. I think it was wise of you to pick that gem out from all of them because I did add that in myself. Because when I was here a year ago, you know, the issue of health, of child care was paramount for a lot of folks in this room, and continues to be, and I get it. But we need help. When Alice presented her plan and everyone saw the price tag, I think we all were a little taken aback when we realized how much we would have to put into this to get it up to where we would want it to be. And we need help, and we still need help. You know, as I think I've referenced in the speech, I don't think federal funding is going to be going up anytime soon unless you live in the Ukraine. You know, we're looking at tightening up on our federal resources that we receive. And we're going to have to do this on our own. And we can't, as a body, step in and fill every time they cut a federal program. We can't replace it at the levels that we were getting federal money for. So we're going into this very strange economic situation where inflation may or may not be out of control. I don't know. I watch the financial news like everyone else, but I don't know if it's going up or down or sideways. But it is an issue, and it's got me concerned. You know, after riding the APA high, I don't want to be talking about raising taxes. It's not something that any of us, especially sitting at table 11, is interested in hearing. So that being said, I'm seriously concerned about our spending going into the future. And it took a while for me to get to the point where this tax cut is on the table and going to happen. But we'll be going forward, and I know we have to go forward, and we will, but in measured steps. So.
Well, I think among the business community leaders on early education and child care and the role of the private sector, no one's done more than my friend J.D. Chesloff in the Massachusetts Business Roundtable, and
I
look
agree with
forward,
that.
J.D., to
Yeah.
working with you on.
That's good. Very true.
Responding to that call to action.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't not talk about transportation, so let's go. I mean, you know the situation, you know, congestion, you know, we're fourth in the world at this point. You know the crisis at the T. I don't have to sort of walk you through all of those things. The governor's focused, which is good. Secretary Fiandaca, new general manager, a lot of focus, a lot of good activity. What do you see at this moment the legislature's role in what is going on in our transportation and mobility world?
Well, I do know that I'm encouraged by the fact that the governor took a legitimate amount of time to really search and find someone that she has confidence in. That, to me, is one of the biggest signs that I've seen that we could be on the way to resolving some of these issues. I represent a city that has 4 red line stops, so I've seen it all. I've had my parking garage closed in the downtown city with less than 4 days' notice. Not just closed, but torn down. I've seen stations closed for handicap accessibility reasons and not knowing when they're going to reopen. So I've seen it all. The deferred maintenance, the lack of any maintenance schedule at all. Just decisions that if you were running a company, you'd fire everyone in there. I just am very frustrated, and I think the membership is frustrated. We put a financing package together in the hopes that that would be enough to get a jump start on some of the major changes that have to be done. And we're still no better off. We got cars that show up but won't work. We can't find people to do the simplest jobs. I mean, it used to be if you were working for the T, you had died and gone to heaven.
I know.
Well, I know why they all come from South Boston. But no, that is true, and now we can't find people. I was riding home and there was a billboard. I guess it was right as you come by the food pantry building in Dorchester, and it had a bonus number for if you join the T. And I almost pulled off and signed up. It was almost $5,000. I'd take the $5,000 to drive a bus for a while. You know, so listen, I understand the issues, and I think everyone in the House understands the financial issues, and we have an old system. We have one of the oldest systems in the country. It needs work. It needs improvement. We are committed to that, but one of the things that really, I think, troubles most of the membership is the safety issues. That we've sacrificed safety. It is still a consumer-driven business. If people are afraid to get on the T, I don't care what we do, we're never going to be successful. So we're going to take a look at some of the safety issues in the Federal Transportation Issue Safety Report and make sure those are getting done. And I'm gonna ask the Transportation Committee to have a hearing on where we are and what has to be done, and see if we can keep some pressure on around the minimum, the safety issues, to make sure that when you get on there, you're not worried about ceiling tiles falling on you or cars going off the track. I mean, that to me is the most alarming thing I've heard around the T since I've been in.
Well, your focus on safety is well placed, as is your initial reaction, which is rebuilding confidence and trust in the employees and the ridership and the legislature and the business community. I think it all starts there, and we can all get behind it if we can get there.
Yeah, you know, one of the most encouraging things to me that I saw in the hiring of this new gentleman was he went around and talked to all the employees. You know, think about it. We send these people out. Trains are running late. They run slow, or they don't run at all, and they're on the front lines taking criticism for people getting on the trains and trying to get to work on time or trying to make appointments. And they're getting beat up by the people getting on the trains and screaming at them. And then we say to them, go out and put a smile on your face and have a nice day. Well, they're not having a nice day. And that's why we're 1,000 people short. You know, they have to have a product that they're proud of. And when that happens, you'll start to see a change in the workforce and a change in attitude. But until then, I couldn't do it. And I'm generally a pretty happy person. But you yell at me for about 6 hours, and you're not going to get the same result that you got.
Well said. You know, healthcare, I don't think there's anyone that has sort of mastered the healthcare system in Massachusetts as well as you have. You mentioned the 2012 law. In your remarks, you mentioned the Health Policy Commission and you know, maybe reinvigorating the work of that commission. What are you looking for out of the Health Policy?
Thank you for that question. That is the best question I got today, because I wanted to expand on that, but I didn't want to make this down in the weeds about healthcare. You know, when we put the HPC together 10 years ago, orphan drugs weren't an issue. The Mass Bio successes hadn't reached the point where we were concerned about the cost of these new drugs that are curing CF and other things. So we never factored them in to the evaluation of the hospital finances. We missed the boat. We missed the boat on a few other things, the consolidation of some of the hospitals. So what I wanted to do is sort of bring people into the HPC who are operating in the healthcare industry today. We don't need, and I don't mean this derogatorily, and I know it's going to be taken derogatorily, but there's nothing I can do about it. And that's to change the board and bring more people who are active in the healthcare industry today that are dealing with how do you pay for cystic fibrosis drugs that charge $400 a month to make people healthy, make people be able to go to work, not have extended stays in the hospital. There's a value to these drugs. There's a savings that are generated by these drugs that we don't account for, that we have to begin to account for to drive the price down so we can afford to have insurance companies cover them. We need a forward-looking HPC that's keeping up with the changes in the drug market and what's going on in the consolidation of hospitals and in the financing of community hospitals. And so it's not so much as an elimination, but a refocusing on the changes that have occurred in healthcare over the last 10 years. And it's not meant as being critical of anyone's performance or as a matter of fact, they just hired extended the contract to the director, and I'm happy about that. I think he can provide continuity, and he can provide a look into the future, and that's what it needs.
Thank you for that focus on healthcare. It's an important issue to the business community, as you know. I'm going to sneak in one more question, even though we're almost at time. Again, in your remarks, you talked about clean energy, and you referenced the big bet, the bold big bet that we as a Commonwealth made on biotech that is paid off, and you know, in a good way. And you know, certainly the clean energy sector is another place, particularly in the offshore wind that you mentioned, all the good reasons. But you also alluded to further support. What's the next step? What do you think needs to happen next to thrust us into that big bet category?
Well, that's another real good question, because I think, you know, we're victims of the world economy. Believe it or not, you know, I'm sitting in my little condo in Quincy. I think no one knows what I'm doing, but if you have to go buy steel today, there's only 3 places you can buy it, and one's in Ukraine, and one's in Russia, and the other's in Kansas or someplace. I don't know where it is, but we got one in the U.S. So the supply chain issues are real. Getting materials and getting construction materials and getting people to do this work is at a strained capacity. So we're blowing through some of the offerings that we put out in the initial offshore wind, which has really slowed us down. And having been once probably the leader on the East Coast, we are now competing with New Jersey and New York. And if we are to compete, we have to really step up and be all in. Now, there will be differences of opinion. I think Chair Roy and I are of one opinion. I don't know exactly where the governor is, and I don't know where the Senate is. But we would like to see a commitment to this, to the tune of about, we're all in, and the East Coast Power Source offering that we're supposed to make in May would be the maximum that we can make, while being cognizant of the fact that we have supply issues. Getting material here is going to be difficult. It's going to be a challenge. But we can put escalators and de-escalators into the offering so that we can manage our position in this. But a large offering will let everyone know we want to be the leaders. We want you here. We have a wire company in Fall River that's going to produce all the cables. They're opening up, I think, in the spring, the late spring. And they're going to supply cable for the East Coast. Those are the folks we want to come and settle here. And when we send out the message that we're in, we want you here. We want, you know, I said something on the boat. It was reminded me of this the other day. We were out looking at the windmills, and we picked the only day I'd be in the harbor of Rhode Island when the windmills weren't turning. So I don't know why we were there, but we're doing the whole thing on the boat, and I'm watching this guy rappel down the blade of a windmill. Yeah, that's what I did too. I turned to Jeff and I said, I know we can make these things. I said, I'm not so sure we can find a guy to do that. But we do, we have them, and there's a whole subculture out there of daredevils that love this stuff. And the guy who owned the company said, I got a stack of resumes in my drawer of people that we never got to. He said, but there are plenty of people who want to do that. He said, just think about all these mountain climbers. And so it is, you know, I say that in that it's the one thing we probably have the most of. We're getting the steel, getting the ships here has been a challenge, but I really do think it's something that as long as the earth is spinning in the right direction, we're going to get breezes. We rank, I think, in the 95th percentile on prevailing winds off the coast of New Bedford and Fall River, with a continental shelf that goes out 50 miles. It is perfect. It is perfect for windmills. They'll be far enough off the shore that you won't have any of the problems that happened with Cape Wind, where they put them 5 feet off the shore and wondered why people got upset. You know, these will be 100 miles. No, 100 miles. They'll barely be visible from on the horizon. So I don't see. Listen, if someone said you were putting a business together, and someone said the source of your electricity is going to be the wind, you're pretty secure. You know, you're not worried about the Russians invading Ukraine and tying up the oil pipelines and the natural gas pipelines. If we really want to be environmentally independent, we have to start to do this, and we have to let people know we're serious. So I think that's the type of things we would like to see happen. You know, but we're not the sole. I'm not the sole player in this whole thing, and I know that I may have to move and be more cognizant of the supply issues around the development of this industry. But which are real. So I think my hope is that we'll be able to keep pushing and keep moving along, but we'll see.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for such a thoughtful conversation. And thank you for your bold leadership, quite frankly, that was demonstrated today on so many issues important to the business community and the broader community at large in Massachusetts. Today's conversation, I thought, was very rich in focusing on issues that matter to everybody, so thank you for that.
Thank you.